That's my cousin. That's what she said, with the same casual tone you'd use to talk about the weather, as if those words could erase the doubt boiling in my chest. I remember the exact moment. Her phone buzzed late at night, and I happened to glance over and catch a glimpse of his name lighting up her screen. She tilted the phone away, smiled nervously, and when I asked, she shrugged it off like it was nothing. "Oh, that's just my cousin," she said, rolling her eyes like I was being ridiculous for even asking. And I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, 'cause once you start pulling on that thread, you know the whole sweater of your life might unravel. But the thing about lies is they don't sit still. They grow legs, they start running, and eventually they run right into the light. For me, the light came in the form of a stranger in a bar on a random Thursday night. A man who didn't owe me anything, who didn't even know my name until that moment. He leaned over, slid a phone across the counter and said, "Hey, aren't you the guy married to her?" On the screen were wedding photos. Not ours, not mine, hers, and his. In Las Vegas, no less. Gaudy lights, cheap chapel, the whole thing. Her in a white dress I'd never seen before. Him in a suit, holding her hand like he'd won the world. I swear time slowed. The bar around me disappeared. All I could see were those pictures. Her smile, wide and carefree, the kind of smile she hadn't given me in years. The way she leaned into him, not like a cousin, not like family, but like a bride staking her claim. And the caption burned into me, "Just married in Vegas." My first reaction wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief. It was this hollow numbness, like the floor had opened up beneath me and I was falling into some abyss I didn't know how to climb out of. Because in that moment, all her words, the late-night explanations, the "you're paranoid," the "trust me," they all came crashing down like glass. I sat there staring at the screen, my hand gripping my glass so tight, I thought it would shatter. The stranger looked at me uncertain, like he wasn't sure if he'd just done me a favor or destroyed me. "I'm sorry, man," he said softly. "I thought you should know." Then he left, just like that. He walked out into the night, while I sat there holding the wreckage of my marriage in my hands. I didn't go home right away. I drove around aimlessly, the city lights blurring through my windshield. Her face in those photos burned into my vision. My mind replayed every time she'd mentioned going to see family, every sudden trip, every unexplained absence. Vegas. How many times had she told me she was at her cousin's, laughing at my suspicion, when in reality she was standing in front of some tacky neon altar, pledging forever to another man. When I finally walked through our front door, she was there on the couch, scrolling her phone, looking up with that same sweet smile. "Hey babe," she said, like nothing had changed. And I looked at her, really looked, and I wondered how long she'd been living two lives, how long she thought she could keep them balanced without one crashing down on the other. I didn't confront her that night, not yet, because part of me needed to be as much as those photos screamed the truth. I wanted her to hand me the rope she'd hang herself with. I wanted to give her one last chance to either confess or double down, and the way I saw it, whichever path she chose, would tell me everything I needed to know. So I waited. I collected every little thing she said, every place she claimed she went, every phone call she tried to take in another room. I started piecing it all together like a detective building a case, and the more I dug, the more the picture sharpened. Credit card charges in Nevada when she told me she was visiting her aunt in Florida, a receipt for a ring tucked into her bag, with initials engraved, that weren't mine, a hidden email account, linked to hotel reservation. And the whole time she kept smiling at me, kissing me, whispering, "I love you," like she was rehearsing for a play. The real breaking point came at a family dinner. We were sitting around her parents' table, everyone chatting, her laughing too loudly at something her father said. I caught her sister staring at me, this uncomfortable flicker in her eyes, like she wanted to tell me something but couldn't. That was the moment I realized, it wasn't just me. She was lying too. Everyone knew, or at least suspected. I was the only one still playing the role of the oblivious husband, the one sitting in the middle of the hackers, with a smile painted on his face. And that's when I decided, enough. I started planning, carefully, meticulously, because I didn't want a screaming match behind closed doors. I didn't want another round of gaslighting, another cycle of her twisting the truth until I doubted my own sanity. No, I wanted the mask to shatter in daylight, in front of the very people she used to hide behind. That's where part 2 begins. Not with the discovery, not even with the wedding photos on that stranger's phone, but with the decision I made that when I revealed the truth, it would be undeniable, unspinnable, something she couldn't talk her way out of. And when it happened, she'd finally understand what it feels like to have the ground ripped out from under you. I remember sitting in that bar staring at those photos on the stranger's phone, and it was like my whole body had been unplugged. Numbness spread through me, but not the kind that saves you. It was the kind that makes you hyper-aware of every sound, every breath, every beat of your heart, like you're watching your own life collapse in slow motion. She had looked me in the eye and said, "That's my cousin." She had laughed at my doubt, dismissed my questions, sworn on everything we had built together, and yet here she was, in a tacky Las Vegas chapel, wearing a white dress, holding his hand, beaming like she had discovered a happiness I never gave her. My wife, my partner, my supposed forever, married to someone else while still coming home to me. For the next few weeks, I moved like a man with two shadows. Outwardly, I was the husband she wanted me to be. I made dinner. I asked about her day. I rubbed her shoulders when she came back from visiting family. But inside I was carrying those photos, that undeniable proof, and with every smile she gave me, with every "I love you" she whispered at night, I felt the bile rise in my throat. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to slam those photos down on the table and watch her scramble. But some instinct told me to wait, to gather, to prepare. Because if there's one thing betrayal teaches you, it's that liars are practiced performers. If you rush them, they'll twist the story until you're the one apologizing. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I started digging. First, the credit card statements. Charges in Nevada. On weekends she swore she was visiting her cousin. Out of state. Jewelry store receipts for rings and trinkets I never saw. Hotel bookings, under names I didn't recognize, but with addresses that lined up too neatly. Then came the emails. She'd left a slip once, logged in on my laptop and forgot to sign out. I wasn't proud of it, but I clicked. What I found wasn't just cheating. It was a parallel marriage. Flight confirmations, shared playlists, notes about our future. And tucked between it all, the pièce de résistance, their digital wedding certificate from Las Vegas. Legal. Binding. She wasn't just betraying me emotionally. She had legally tied herself to another man, while still wearing my ring at home. I printed everything, neatly, organized, clipped into a folder like a lawyer preparing for trial. But even with the folder in hand, I didn't strike. Not yet. Because I realized something. Exposing her in private wasn't enough. She needed to be revealed in the same way she'd lied. Publicly, smoothly, with a smile on her face. She needed the mask ripped off in front of the very people she thought she could keep fooled. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Her parents were hosting their anniversary dinner. Big event. Family and close friends. Speeches, toasts, the whole show. She was giddy about it, picking out a dress, fussing over her makeup, asking me which earrings looked better, and I stood behind her in the mirror, smiling, telling her she looked beautiful, while in my head I thought, "You'll never see this coming." That night, the table was filled with chatter. Her father stood and gave a heartfelt toast about love, commitment, the beauty of marriage. She clapped enthusiastically, leaning against me, squeezing my hand under the table like we were the perfect couple. And that's when I stood. "Before we move on," I said, raising my glass, "I'd like to say something too." All eyes turned to me. She smiled, expecting some sappy speech. "I want to talk about honesty," I began, "about the promises we make when we say I do. Because those words are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to bind two people together in truth." I paused, looking at her. Her smile faltered just a little. "And sometimes," I continued, pulling the folder from my jacket, "the truth shows up in ways you don't expect. Sometimes it's delivered by a stranger in a bar, who shows you photos of your wife in a wedding dress, in Las Vegas." The room froze. Her face went white, then red, then back to white. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I opened the folder and spread the photos across the table. Gasps rippled around us. Her mother's hand flew to her chest. Her father leaned forward, disbelief etched into his face. Her sister whispered, "Oh my God, meet her cousin," I said bitterly, tapping the photo of her and him, holding hands, smiling in front of the neon chapel sign. "Not much of a family resemblance, is there?" She started crying instantly, grabbing at my arm. "Please, It's not what you think. I can explain. I pulled away. Explain. You stood in front of another man, in another city, in another life, and married him while you were still married to me. You didn't just cheat. You built a second reality, and thought I'd never notice. He wasn't there, of course. Cowards never are. But his absence made it worse. She was alone, facing a firing squad of shocked family, and for once, she didn't have the upper hand. Her father stood, shaking his head. "Tell me this isn't true," he demanded. But her silence was enough. I gathered the papers, tucked them back into the folder, and looked her dead in the eye. "You told me he was your cousin. You laughed at me for doubting you. And the whole time you were his wife too. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everyone at this table. And now they all know." And then I walked out. The sound of her sobbing followed me down the hall, mixed with her mother's muffled cries, her father's anger, her sister's shock. But I didn't look back. The night air outside was crisp, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The aftermath was chaos. She called for days, left voicemails swinging between rage and begging. "How could you humiliate me like that?" she shouted in one. "Please, don't leave me. I made a mistake," she whispered in another. "But what do you call a second marriage hidden behind your first if not a choice?" I met with a lawyer the very next morning. I handed him the folder, every page neatly stacked. He flipped through it, raised his eyebrows and said, "You'll walk away clean." She won, and that was enough for me. Weeks turned into months. The fallout was brutal for her friends, abandoning her, family fractured, whispers spreading. He disappeared. Men like him always do when the light hits too hard. And she was left with nothing. No husband, no family support, no escape. As for me, I rebuilt. Slowly, painfully. There were nights I lay awake replaying her words. "That's my cousin," and I'd feel the rage rise again. But each time, I reminded myself of those photos, of the truth that no lie could bury forever. Sometimes people ask me what happened, why it ended. I don't tell them the whole story. I just say, "She said he was her cousin," and then I saw their wedding photos in Vegas. That's all it takes. The rest writes itself on their faces. Shock, disbelief, pity. Because that's the thing about betrayal. You don't need to embellish it. The truth, when it finally surfaces, is damning enough.